Hello friends, welcome to Akulmach Business Channel. We all know that there is a major tension going on right now. Earlier it was Ukraine versus Russia, now it is US versus China. And there's a lot of politics going on, but let's not talk about politics. What I want to talk about is basically what are the learning for businesses from whatever is going on in the Far East. And I call it the dancing triangle. Let us understand more about what is going on, especially as a management study. Well, friends, as you know that there are a lot of visible confrontation which are going on between countries, and there are a lot of cold war which is going on, and there are some gainers and there are some losers, but there are mostly gainers in this situation. For instance, for the conflict which happened between Russia and Ukraine, the biggest gainer was China. We all know that, and the biggest loser was the US. In fact, the US said that China is going to eat our lunch also, and we will not be able to find pieces for our dinner. There is a kind of conversation going on, and now there is a major confrontation brewing up since the last 2 days between US and China with regard to Taiwan. And I think the major thing that we need to understand here is the biggest gainer now would be the Russia. If the conflict in Taiwan happens, the gainer would be Russia. I think that is the equation. And while these countries, all these big countries, small countries are loggerhead with each other, I think they are working at the strategic level. And I think most important business lesson for us is not to look at the political part of it, but understand the strategy, how these strategies are being worked upon, and when they basically confront each other, what are the strategies that they take care, and ultimately they want to make money. US wants to make money, Russia wants to make money. The world is coming out of pandemic and they want to kickstart their economy. China is obviously want to make money. In India, Australia, all the countries want to basically revive their economy, and therefore these are the strategies that the countries are working on. And we need to understand, I think we can take some lessons as business people from these very very intelligent people who are managing the world affairs. And therefore don't look at the whatever is being shown on the face value. Let's try to understand the whatever is going on at the strategic level. For instance, let me throw some examples here. During the Russian Ukraine conflict, the biggest revenue was made by the arms companies, and then some of the business also got diverted to India, because Russia and the Ukraine are the major grain suppliers, wheat grain suppliers to Africa. So some of those things got transferred to, some of that business got transferred to India. So I think the whole strategy of conflict was to basically transition the supply chain in different directions. Similarly, oil and gas dependency, I don't have to repeat. I think most of us know what is going on, especially in the European sector, where the entire Europe is dependent on the Russian gas, and the conflict is happening in Europe, but Russians are selling their gas to China, and the biggest gainer, therefore, is China. And so this is all strategy which is being worked upon. It's not the conflict. It's not, the countries do not want to escalate it to a level where it becomes world war. And nobody wants to fight. They just want to improve their economy. So I think that is where the strategy is coming in place, and we have to look at these strategies very well. While the conflict is very localized in Ukraine and Russia, but the economy of certain countries has improved, their currency value has improved. So definitely it is basically, you hit one stone, you hit just hit one stone and you had hit many targets. Throw one stone and hit many targets. So that is what is going on here. And as a business person, I think it's important to understand the importance of the strategy. And One of the thing is identify the customer. Uh, as a business person, we must identify who are our customers and what they need, how I'm going to provide what they need, and in return my customer is going to pay me the revenue, which is very important for my survival as a company. So this is exactly what is happening here. The customer for oil and gas are India and China. And if the European countries and American countries says that okay, I will boycott the Russian gas, well, there is a ready market, because the largest market in the world is India and China, because India and China has a lot of minerals, but both countries, most populous countries, do not have petroleum. They have to spend a lot of their forex to import that petroleum products from different places. And so now Russia has surplus gas which they can provide to China and India, and this is exactly what is happening. And there are different deals being worked out, there are different mechanisms being worked out, and because of this, Russians knew who's the customer. I mean, they are taking a strategic decision to invade Ukraine, but they are also keeping eye on who is going to pay me for what I have, and therefore identifying the right customers. Similarly, if you look at the US China conflict over Taiwan, who will be biggest gainer? That will be the Russia. So again, strategy is being worked out, and the conflict will be localized in the Far East, in the Taiwanese, or maybe the this region, but it will have an impact on a different level altogether, where people have and the countries, when I say people in this case, are the countries who have identified who is going to buy my products and who is going to pay me for the services, who is going to feel the heat and pay me anything for my services. So all this has been already worked out, and this confrontation that we have seen since last 2 days, I think it has been on the drawing board for almost 8 to 9 months, or maybe more. You never know. So the strategies are planned at least 5 to 6 years in advance and executed at a particular moment in time. And therefore, as business, we must understand how do we identify the customers and how do we identify the paying customer. The customer will pay me anything for whatever I have, and that is the key here. That is the key learning. Second key learning is positioning. While as I mentioned about the Russian gas, the positioning is so perfect. If the agreement between if the European country says that, hey, I am going to fight you, and because of this I am not going to buy the gas from Russia, what is the alternative? They have no alternative. So while they are fighting on one side, and they are also paying in ruble to Russia, and because of that, the Russian positioning was perfect. Russian government said, if you want to buy gas from me, you have to pay me in rubles, and because of that, they had to shift payment from euro to ruble or dollars to ruble, strengthening the ruble. So I think this is where what was happening, and all these sanctions and whatever did not work. The Western countries put so many sanctions on Russia, but none of the sanctions really worked. And everybody, all the players, ensured that the battle which is going on was restricted to certain region only, did not escalate beyond boundaries of Ukraine. And within Ukraine also restricted to certain regions. So it did not escalate into a full-fledged war. Imagine a situation where how difficult it is for Russia to just occupy Ukraine, and it takes 3 days. But they have not done that. So it is a strategic decision to first invade and then prolong the war, so that the other motives that they had, that means whatever they had positioned in terms of you can call it different names, arm twisting, or creating a need for which you can collect extra payment from the customer, whatever. I think these are the lessons that these very smart strategists can teach us. And so positioning of your product. Similarly, whatever is going on right now between US and China, I think is going to change the supply chain again. Uh, Maybe some of the business may land up into India. As it is, there has been a lot of businesses are shifting from China, especially the manufacturing units shifting from China to India. Now look at China's interest in this case. China, Taiwan is such a small country. Why they should be bothered about Taiwan? But Taiwan has a global standing simply because Taiwan is the global leader in the semiconductor space. They produce all the chips which are used in computers and every devices. They are the hallmark of production, especially when it comes to chip manufacturing. So if and it's a small country, so they have nothing else. I mean, if you talk about the skyscraper, they have only one skyscraper in the entire country, which is called Taipei 101. So if China invade Taiwan, they will end up destroying the chip industry for which they value Taiwan. So, in my opinion, all these theatricals which are going on, that is scrambling the jets and flying over Taiwan, then tanks rolling on the border, and some exercises going on in the Taiwan Strait, it's all positioning. They are positioning because they cannot afford to destroy Taiwan, because Taiwan has one thing which China does not have, and that is the semiconductor industry. And this is exactly what the positioning is all about. And I think that's a very good lesson that we have to learn. And everybody has to identify the revenue from where it will come. If US and China get loggerhead and US and Russia get loggerhead, they have to also keep track of from where the food will come, from where the essentials for their country will come, from where the revenue will come, how the dollar is kept high, how the ruble is kept high, and similarly how the Indian rupee is also made stronger. So like that, I think whoever are the major player in this, they are also keeping track of where their revenue is, and they are not simply going by emotions. As if we switch on the TV, we see a lot of emotions flowing around between people, and a lot of speeches are being made, but that's not the reality, because I think the reality is something else. So there is a strategy at the back end. They are keeping track who is going to pay me, who is going to feel the maximum pain, and will then end up paying me whatever I want for my services. So this is exactly to identify the trail. I think that is where the lessons for business would be: identify the revenue trail, very important at a strategic level. So you take action A, apparently does not have any link with your revenue generation, but then because of action A, you are able to generate a lot of revenue, become rich. For instance, let me go back to Ukraine-Russia crisis. All the weapons which were provided by the European countries to Ukraine to fight were paid off by the Western countries' exchequers, which is taxpayers' money. No politician who decided that they will send the free weapons to Ukraine and soldiers to Ukraine, or whatever armaments to Ukraine, did not pay from their own pocket. They paid from the government money, and the government money is basically the exchequer, which is the taxpayer. So the companies who are producing these weapons are not doing charity. They are definitely getting paid by the government. So you can imagine, the revenue is the exchequer of their own respective countries flowing back to them as in terms of revenue. And if you look at the arms manufacturers, their share prices are shooting through the roof. They are making a lot of money here. So similarly, when you think of strategy, you have to also include where the revenue is going to come from, who's going to pay me, who's going to pay, who is the customer, who is the paying customer. And that is the learning from this conflict that we can make as a lesson. And then, when we go out in the field as business people, we obviously have a lot of competition, and competition also have a strategy. For example, US has a strategy, similarly China has a strategy in this case. So both the countries are working at a strategic level. and they have few tanks, being rolled out, few jets being flying around, does not mean anything. These are all bluffs. So who calls the bluff, who gets defeated at a strategic level is something that we will see. So this is also applicable in our day-to-day business, where the competition strategies can be nullified if you are smart and if your strategy is much stronger and you are willing to take some risk and call the bluff. For example, one of the example is that you can reduce the price by just like $10 as compared to competition, and see what happens. So if the competition says, okay, let me reduce by $12, that means you're calling the bluff and you're succeeding, because now your competition is falling into a trap. So there could be thousand other strategies, and you should be able to call the bluff in real case scenario. Now in this case also, the learning is that US senator decided to take a flight and go to Taiwan. Now the calling the bluff is very simple here, because she took Air Force One. Air Force One is the aircraft which is considered as a military aircraft, since it flies the president and the senior people like senators in US. And if you shoot down a military aircraft, you are escalating a war. So the bluff is that I'm coming to Taiwan, you have the guts, shoot me down. And that is so China, if they had taken the bluff, they could have, if they wanted a war, they could have shot down Air Force One, but they didn't. They just kept flying around their jets. 35 jets they flew yesterday, and a lot of tanks on the border, but they did not escalate the war. So this is calling the bluff. So who's calling the bluff, who's falling in the trap, that time will tell us. But I think this is something which is a very big learning for business people. We should be prepared to call the bluff of the competition at a strategic level. I'm not talking about this thing, but all of these strategies can be worked upon, and it's something that is the intelligence of the leader who's running that business. So first of all, strategize, then implement those strategies. Make sure that you have the adequate knowledge of your competition, and at some point in time when the competition is very fierce, you must call the bluff. And then there is nothing like winning. So winning is the ultimate goal of any business, and therefore you must look at the price that you're going to get. That means the customer order, and by doing all this, we must win. And that is another thing that we must keep in mind, that this push and pull which are happening globally at in the politics today, leaving aside the politics, but I think there are many intelligent people, strategists who are working in the background, and they are the unsung heroes here in all countries, because we only get to hear these names of the presidents and the prime ministers and the senators and member of parliament, but the actual team who's working in the background, we will never hear their name, but they are the real strategists. And the presidents and all these leaders, political leaders, are, by the way, are the figureheads who get to announce these decisions which are made by these very secretive strategic team. And ultimately, that is what the winning strategy is made. That's how the winning strategy is made. And therefore, winning is everything. And that is where the learning is, that if one country is trying to take an edge over others by controlling trade or by controlling the currency value, I think it's fair, because it's all at the strategic level. So I think, in my opinion, there are a lot of learnings from this conflict, and why I call it dancing triangle, because clearly there are three countries who are dancing and calling taking different steps around each other, calling the bluff at different times, which is Russia, China and US, and they are going to be gaining something out of these conflict. And therefore, the management tip for us today is not to look at the political angle, but try to understand what is going on from the strategic point of view. So, friends, if you think you agree with me, or if you even if you don't agree with me, I look forward to receiving your comments. And as always, thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.